Hey, everybody, welcome back. Craig Schaup here with George Thomas, our film critic from the Akron Beacon Journal. George is here, and we have another movie here, our second one in the DC universe that's being helmed by James Gunn. I know you were a big fan last year of Superman that came out. James Gunn's really kind of, I think, honest take on the Superman character, a very wholesome individual, saves a squirrel in the midst of a battle, and so on. I really liked it as well. Supergirl.
Save the squirrel.
He did. He literally saved a squirrel during a battle.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But that's Superman, right? So we both enjoyed that movie, and we're excited. From the start here of the James Gunn universe. Obviously, Gunn has plenty of experience in the comic book superhero realm with Guardians of the Galaxy. But this is a non-James Gunn directed superhero movie. So this is Supergirl. We saw Supergirl last year at the end of Superman as they introduced her to the universe. And now she gets her solo film directed by Craig Gillespie. Tell us a little bit about Supergirl, George.
You know what? And excuse me. This may scare the heck out of you, but as I wrote in my review, it kind of harkens back to Zack Snyder.
Okay.
Now, Millie Alcock stars as Kara Zor-El / Supergirl. And we saw her at the end of Superman, as you mentioned, just wasted. Yeah. Totally wasted. And we get to learn why in Supergirl. We also get her origin story, which a lot of people who just partake of films in these DC films are likely to be unaware of. I mean, her city, Argo City, was saved by Superman's uncle, Zor-El. City's name was Argo City. And she was fully immersed in the Kryptonian culture. That is a very important distinction. She was immersed in it. She did not leave Argo City until the city was on the verge of destruction, until she was an adult. She arrives on planet Earth. Cousin takes her in, blah, blah, blah. She has a problem adjusting to life on Earth. And you have to understand that, given she's fully of the Kryptonian culture.
Right.
She spends more time off-world. In her latest foray off-world, where she's celebrating her 23rd birthday for a week, she gets involved with a young woman named Ruthie, whose family has been struck down, killed by renegades who, for lack of they're scumbag renegades who only want to create a male-only race. Women are for breeding only, and they better have little boys.
Yeah.
To accomplish this, they kidnap women from planet to planet, blah, blah, blah. But they sought Ruthie's parents out because her father was a master at creating swords. He gets killed. Ruthie is looking to avenge her parents' and her brother's deaths. And she shows up at a bar proclaiming this. And pretty soon, Kara finds herself drawn into this situation. She tries not to get drawn into it, but a little detail complicates that. The leader of this group of renegades, name is Krim, shoots Crypto. Shoots the puppy, man. You do not shoot the puppy.
No.
With a paralyzing agent that will eventually kill him over 3 days without the antidote, which is kept on Krim's person. In that moment, Kara realizes her goals and Ruthie's goals align, which is to get to Krim. Not completely aligned because Ruthie wants to kill him. And they go on this journey to find him. Action-packed journey, humorous journey. It's generally a good time. A classic Superman character, and I don't know whether this character, Lobo, an intergalactic bounty hunter, shows up in Supergirl comics or not. I wasn't a big comics reader growing up, but he's portrayed by Jason Momoa, who gets his second shot in the DC film as an entirely different character that probably suits his personality more.
Yeah.
Because Lobo is this bombastic character I learned of in the Superman cartoon on Fox back in the 90s. And he was a sight to behold there. He's a sight to behold here. Now, you can predict what's going to happen. I'm not going to give away any plot details, but the key difference is for those who don't like the fact that Superman is his Boy Scout, Kara isn't a Girl Scout and she's no brownie either. Yeah. So, she has no problem coloring outside the lines.
Right.
That's due to her not feeling she belongs anywhere. And you can see what Gillespie and the screenwriter Anna Nagura were doing here, using this episode to not only flesh out the character, who not a lot of people know unless you saw the Supergirl series on the CW, which I stuck with for like 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Or the Helen Slater movie from the mid 80s, which was entirely mediocre.
Right.
So they flesh out the character. But what's refreshing is, Superman is his Boy Scout. She's not.
Yeah.
And it's a realistic take on what a person should be.
Yeah.
Is likely to be. Because you've said it yourself in past talking about Superman. He's too good to be too good to be true. You can't really normally do a lot with that character.
Right.
I agree. Wholeheartedly. This one is different. Supergirl, Kara, is different because her moral code isn't as stringent,
right,
as Kal-El's Superman. It makes for some interesting situations, including a jaw-dropping ending that really defines the character in the end.
Okay. Is that sort of why you mentioned, the Zack Snyder DC Snyderverse? This is a little bit of a darker take on?
Yeah, because if you remember, Superman in the Zack Snyder universe was isolated.
Yeah.
He didn't have a sense of belonging. He operated under the radar. Now, she doesn't quite do that, but the same themes, the same character traits are there. And it's only they're flipped to her. And it's going to be interesting to see what they eventually do with these two characters together in a movie.
Yeah.
Because you can sense that you can surmise that perhaps eventually some dramatic tension is going to arise from those conflicting views.
Right. Well, overall, a final grade for Supergirl.
I gave it a B. It's not perfect. It's a good time. I like the fact that they flipped those assorted themes to the Kara Zor-El character, and it's worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned. It's getting decidedly mixed reviews, which puzzles me. So the last time I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, it was at 59%.
Interesting that you bring up sort of the tone. I know that, James Gunn, when he started off with this universe, he said that they're going to have every movie is going to kind of be in its own little vacuum. So it's going to have its own tone. I know Clayface, that's coming later this year, is another movie that is supposedly like rated R, and it's a body dysmorphia movie and all that. So it seems like that's sort of the goal here, is to have, individualized tones. And I know my biggest concern with that, I think, is always, can it come together cohesively when they eventually do like a Justice League or team up movies, like, of course, with Supergirl and Superman. But I think it adds some extra friction that probably would make sense. And and maybe they both learn a little bit to either kind of be more stringent or less stringent, depending on who you are. But I'm interested to see, how far this goes. Obviously, the sale of Warner Brothers in the background of all of this can kind of conflict with some things moving forward. But financially, though, there's not a lot of hope right now for Supergirl to make a lot of money. Clayface, if it's rated R and it's coming out in September, maybe not a lot of expectations box office wise. Obviously, Man of Tomorrow, the Lex Luthor Superman team up movie next year. Do you feel like DC, if they don't really have hits on their hands, that they might struggle to continue this on when Paramount maybe takes over? Because you're not really seeing, I mean, Superman made money, but how profitable was it? Was it profitable enough is in the eye of the beholder. But, if you're investing 150, $175 million a pop on this, you're going to need a pretty substantial return to continue making these, keeping this universe together. So do you think that if this movie and Clayface maybe don't make the money, that they might have to rethink what they're doing outside of after Man of Tomorrow?
I really hope not, because at bare minimum, what Gunn is doing in this case, I'm sure he serves as executive producer, so he's got some input.
Sure.
Is not boring. Let's try that. It's interesting. Yeah. He's doing a lot of different things with the characters. And Clayface, it's being released on October 23rd.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
It's a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Which gives me some hope with that R rating, because who doesn't like a good scare at Halloween? Yeah. Except me, when it's a hack and slash film.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like it's a lower budgeted movie, like 60 million, 80 million, maybe something like that. So it's not some bloated budget that, maybe they have a good chance to make a return on investment. Like you said, if they can take advantage of that Halloween time where people are looking for something different. And we've seen, the body dysmorphia movies have done fairly well. The Substance was very popular. So maybe people are kind of getting into that as the new wave of horror right now. So maybe Clayface has an opportunity to capitalize on that too. Another concern that I have too is, and maybe they're keeping things close right now, but it doesn't seem like there's a planned out, this is what the step-by-step process is of this DC universe is going to be, much like we've seen with Marvel saying we're going to have this movie and then this movie and then this movie. And it seems like they've planned out everything for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Right now, it doesn't seem like we know much of a plan from DC. Does that hurt the ability to keep the train moving, though, to maybe not have a Batman in place or, a Wonder Woman now or something like that? Does it maybe put a wrench in their plans to gain momentum on this?
With respect to Wonder Woman, from what I've seen, the screenwriter for Supergirl has it listed as a coming project on her credits. So take from that what you want. Wonder Woman is out there in the ether. I think some of it is going to hinge on the reception that Lanterns received, which is part of this broader universe. Sure. And I suspect if that's received well, you're going to have a Lanterns movie at some point.
Right.
For all we know, this series is a setup for that.
Right.
And I kind of like the fact that it's not planned out so far in advance that they can't just go with the flow.
Right.
With Marvel, they couldn't pivot.
Yeah.
Gunn gets the opportunity to pivot. So
I think it's
an advantage.
Yeah, I think as long as they don't try to jump right into like a Justice League movie, like we saw before, probably works in their advantage. And I think adding ancillary characters like Lanterns or, other offshoot, doesn't have to be Batman right away or Wonder Woman right away. It can be some of the, and I think they kind of did that with Superman, because how many people knew Mr. Terrific or Hawk Girl, where they're really putting in characters just to kind of build out the world, and then they'll sprinkle them in with the big guns that everybody knows. And I think that's probably the best way to kind of build this from the ground up. And I do appreciate sort of the reset that Gunn has made here, where he's not trying to reinvent what Snyder did. He's saying we're going to hard reset, and that's kind of what it was with Superman. And I think, I mean, obviously, I thought more people should have seen it, or whatever that entails for a better box office return. But it still made over $600 million. I think you're still probably seeing good merchandise sales and all that good stuff with Superman. And clearly they were happy enough to move on with Man of Tomorrow to continue that Superman thread. So I don't think there's any caution there. I just kind of wonder where it's building, and maybe that's kind of like you said, maybe that's a good thing, where they can pivot where they want to, and they can bring in Batman when they need to. And I also wonder if the Matt Reeves Batman verse with Robert Pattinson has something to do with them not really wanting to jump right into Batman, because maybe there'd be some confusion amongst the audience about, well, who's the Batman in this world? Or, does Pattinson's Batman work in the, corn sweat Superman, mold? So I do like the idea that they're kind of slow playing it, but I'm sure they have a better plan that they just haven't released to the public, that they know where they want to go and take this and tell stories. But I'm just kind of intrigued to see, what the next steps could be here. And it doesn't seem like there's, outside of Man of Tomorrow and Clayface and Lanterns, that there's no rush on some of these other characters to get introduced into this DC universe.
Well, the Wonder Woman movie doesn't have a release year on it yet, so that might tell you something.
Yeah.
I suspect you won't hear anything about Batman until after the October 27 release of the next installment of that series.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people have been jockeying for the lead role, including Alan Ritchson, who played Aquaman in Smallville. But
yeah.
So they're just biding their time, I suspect.
Okay. All right. Well, it's something worth seeing at least, and another good addition to this new universe. And I know there's another highly anticipated release coming out this weekend. House of the Dragon is back. This is season 3. Is that correct? Season 3. So
season 3.
I will admit, first and foremost, I have never watched House of the Dragon. I have seen maybe 10 minutes of Game of Thrones. So not that it's not in my wheelhouse or my cup of tea. I just never got into it at the time, and didn't have HBO at the time that Game of Thrones was super popular. So, and then of course, with all the seasons they had, it was quite the investment to put into it to catch up on it all. So have to preface it by saying I'm not super familiar with Game of Thrones, but I know you've enjoyed the House of the Dragon. Tell us about this season 3.
Well, first of all, House of the Dragon, even over the course of its 2 seasons, it's a lot. First 2 seasons, it's a lot of time invested, and I binged the thing.
Yeah.
Now, fans of the series know that it was building up to this huge confrontation battle, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And HBO only provided the first 2 episodes, which guess what they include? That battle.
Yeah.
For television, it's epic stuff. It really is. Even when compared to Game of Thrones, this battle between, and the families in House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones they're weird, because they overtly practice incest.
Mm-hmm.
The thing was blood strengthens blood.
Okay.
That's the mantra. Now, for those who don't know, House of the Dragon concerns the Targaryen family, and it boils down to 2 factions within the Targaryen family battling for control of the Iron Throne. On one side, you have Alicent Hightower and her children, her sons, who by the time season 3 rolls around are adults, fighting for the elder son's succession over their half sister, Rhaenyra, who is granted succession in a world full of men by her father before he died. Now, through some misunderstandings, you can see this stuff unfolding. Alicent assumed that her husband on his deathbed changed his mind about who was going to sit on the Iron Throne, setting off this whirlwind of events where it's family against family, and the hate just spills over into this grand epic battle in the first 2 episodes of season 3. You know, the one thing you can appreciate about both series, and especially House of the Dragon, is a political intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dudes are going to watch it for the violence, the fighting,
Right.
but the political intrigue, the backstabbing, the whispering, all that is what makes for the drama. And the cast, which includes Matt Smith, is up to the task of delivering all this. And I watched all of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Turns out I watched about the first half of House of the Dragon, and for some reason I pieced out. I just never got back into it. When I started watching it again, picking up where I left off and remembering what happened, I suddenly realized that I'd made a mistake. I mean, it's must-see television just to watch all of this unfold. There are time jumps. It's not static. It's well acted. The effects are fantastic, and the battle scenes are epic.
Yeah.
And it's got dragons, so hey.
Right. I mean, it's pretty incredible to think, you know, how television has advanced in even 10, 15 years, thinking, you know, or 20 years, just thinking the type of programming we'd normally get. And then in the advent of streaming, just the amount of money that has been sunk into these shows. I mean, the Lord of the Rings series, I think, cost over $1 billion to produce for Amazon. Obviously, they have stupid money, so they don't care. But it's just incredible to think the type of money that's just being invested into these TV shows. But I think for HBO, one of the things that it has going for them is, you know, you obviously don't have commercials and advertising sales, but you do get ratings, and you can tangibly see who's tuning in for those shows on a Sunday night. Obviously, streamers can track how many minutes people have watched a show, but you always wonder, you know, like we used to leave and, you know, we would put the Big Bang Theory on for our dogs when we went somewhere just to have noise in the house and stuff. So, but you can tangibly see like who's watching this programming. And I think this is one of those few shows and one of those few franchises that you can probably point to saying that we have a lot of audience and we have a lot of subscribers to HBO Max because of Game of Thrones, because of House of the Dragon. And a lot of streamers probably can't pinpoint and say, well, we have a lot of streaming, you know, subscribers because of the Lord of the Rings series. Well, Amazon just has a lot of subscribers anyway because they have, you know, Amazon Prime. So it's really interesting though, but HBO's in a better spot, I think, than some of those streamers because they can tangibly see it, I think, more than any other streamer out there.
And here's something else. They understand just how popular the series, at least Game of Thrones, was because they sold it. They sold physical media for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure that brought in a boatload of cash for the fanboys. It had to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they get it.
Yeah. And you've only seen the first 2 episodes then, correct?
Correct.
All right, but worth watching for fans alike.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is, you know, and what I really like is how the characters are advanced or how they evolve from the end of the second season to this season. And there's a theme that occurs throughout that wanting is probably better than having. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, right.
So, it's really well done.
Okay. All right. Well, something else to see. I know the release calendar, we're getting into July, which we have a couple of big movies toward the end of July. But I know next week, you and I are both fans of the Minions from the Despicable Me franchise. I know they have another movie coming out, which I've kind of been a little bit wonky on whether or not the Minions need their own movies, but they are fun characters as side characters at the very least. But are you going to be reviewing the Minions and Monsters?
Oh, absolutely. They're even showing it in IMAX. How about that?
Exciting. Well, I mean, it's a great time to be an animated feature because Toy Story just absolutely blew projections out of the water. So maybe the Minions movie will get to that $1 billion mark like it's gotten there before. It's gotten close, at least. I know the Minions movies have been very popular, which is why they keep making them. But I mean, were you surprised that Toy Story made as much money as it did? I mean, it blew projections out of the water by probably about 50 million, domestically. It was not, I mean, it was expected to do well, but wow, it was incredibly well received at the box office.
Part of me is because Toy Story 4 is just so meh in my estimation. And maybe the fact that they found a new way to attack the subject matter by bringing in the tech angle, and they played that up in trailers and everywhere, led to that. I don't know. Yeah. It's well done. And I with that opening, you don't have a lot of word of mouth. I mean, it's just enthusiasm on an opening weekend. So
right.
Maybe it's that tech angle. But part of me was surprised. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and sequels, sometimes the more you make, the little bit less money you make on them, on each one of them. But it looks like it's going to be another hit for Pixar, which, good for them. They've had some rough box office returns in the past few years. So I'm sure they're excited, which is why we keep getting Toy Story 5 and Inside Out 2 and Moana live action, for instance. All these.
That's Walt Disney Studios.
That is Disney. I'm sorry. I apologize, Pixar. I apologize, but we'll see. But Hoppers, of course, was original, and we both enjoyed that very much. So
Did you see that expectations for Moana aren't great? I saw a story about that.
Yeah, I heard it's tracking pretty low, actually.
Maybe that'll tell Disney something, but they don't have to. I doubt it.
Yeah, but I mean, and again, they probably are getting to the point where what's the cutoff for a live action remake? Like, is Ratatouille like as WALL-E live action remakeable? I mean, I think there's got to be a limit to what they can do, but for every box office disaster like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was, and possibly Moana live action, you had Lilo and Stitch that did over $1 billion. And I think maybe Disney probably looks at it like, we have to keep,
you lose some.
Yeah. Well, or maybe it's just like, you have to keep making them because you never know which one is going to hit, and some of them have, and some of them haven't, but as long as they think it's still fruitful to do it, I think they're going to continue. And where does that leave us as far as, what more can they do? I mean, never say never with anything that Disney owns or has a property investment in, because they might turn it. I mean, Moana, I don't think needed to be touched live action, but I don't think any of them really need to be touched, especially if you're like shot for shot remaking them like The Lion King was. It just seems like gratuitous at that point when you're more so just reshooting the whole movie just in live action. But that's just me, and I was not a big fan of Snow White last year. That was terrible, and I'm glad that it did not make any money.
Confession, I didn't even see it, so
don't. You know what?
That's when they did the screen.
Yeah, don't see it, but maybe see it if you have like this. What's a bad Disney remake live action look like? What's, it's just kind of one of those, like, maybe out of curiosity, guilty pleasure, but no pleasure involved in the guilt. You're just like, why am I watching this? It's bad. And it's nothing, I know there was a little bit of Rachel Ziegler versus Gal Gadot back and forth, whatever. It has nothing to do with the rivalry or whatever, the political issues that those two had. It was just terrible. Just all in all, just terrible. So don't see it. Yeah, don't see it. Don't see it. Don't ever see it. If someone
back. Tell me what you really think.
Well, I don't always usually like go in on actors or actresses for their work. That is one where I felt like Gal Gadot probably was terribly miscast. Like really terribly miscast. But all right. Although she was good in Wonder Woman, she was fine there. But yeah. All right. Well, we will talk Minions and monsters. Anything else on the horizon, streaming or otherwise?
Oh, streaming. The Bear is back tomorrow.
Okay.
And I was just watching the first 2 episodes that I can't say anything about. So we'll talk about it next week.
All right. Sounds great.
Other than that, I have to check the calendar.
Okay. Well, as always, we appreciate your time. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by. Have fun at Minions and IMAX, which should be fun.
Hopefully.
All right, George. Well, we take care, and everything you can read everything at George or listen to watch his reviews at beaconjournal.com. George, thanks so much for stopping by. We will talk again soon.